We've been discussing the angelic world this week in our Wonderful Day in the Lord broadcast, including the demonic world, and we've looked at Satan together. And Satan, we find Satan is truly a spirit being of great power and great evilness. He is the ruler of this age, the God of this time, and his designs are to destroy all the great things God does. He wants to counterfeit and undermine anything that God does, including to counterfeit and underline and deceive God's people. That is, I think, his primary target in the world today. He hates the Lord and he hates the Lord's people. In Ephesians chapter 6 that we left off with yesterday, we found in verse 12, his great weapon is not a demon possession. It's not some kind of miraculous powers where he does very miraculous things. It's in deception. He is the greatest of all deceivers, and he is trained, in a sense, his multitudes of people to spread his lies and his deception. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places." And in verse 11, I should have read already, "Put on the full armor of God, so that you'll be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil." So his designs is to deceive us, to trick us, to get us to fall for his lies. In chapter 4 of Second Timothy, we find that 1 Timothy, chapter 4 of 1 Timothy, we find that he is warning us of the latter times. I think the latter times is this age. And he says in verse 1, "But the Spirit explicitly says that in the latter times some will fall away from the faith, paying attention to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, by the hypocrisy of liars," and so forth. So this is a very important thing. Notice here in this verse 1 that Satan's attempts to deceive us is through the doctrines of demons. Doctrines here are plural. There's only one true doctrine, the doctrines of God. The doctrine of God is one. There's no multiplicity there. There is the truth that we are to understand and live by. Satan and his demons are not limited to one doctrine, and there's many doctrines. And so all the false teachings of the world could be under the umbrella of the doctrines of demons. So you can go to the world religions, the false cults of Christianity. You can go to the philosophies that are permeate our world throughout the ages, the awful things that have happened, and you'll find the doctrines of demons behind all those things. And he wants us to pay attention, he said, to these spirits, so that we're not being taken in by them, that we understand their schemes and know something about them. He doesn't want us to fall for them. He wants us to be aware and not pay attention to them in the sense of accepting them, but to understand them so that we can reject them. But we're also told in places like 2 Corinthians chapter 1, chapter 11 here, if you want to turn there, 2 Corinthians chapter 11. He talks here about Satan. He says, "But I fear that as the serpent has deceived Eve by his craftiness, your minds will be corrupted for the simplicity and the purity of devotion to Christ." And so here was a people, he was warning them that they not have their minds corrupted by false teachings. And he goes on to say in verse 13, he says, "For such men are false apostles, deceitful workers, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Therefore it is not surprising if his ministers also disguise themselves as ministers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their deeds." So where do we see the primary influences of the deception of Satan? We don't see him. We don't see his person. He's a spirit. He's invisible to us. But he works in deceitful workers. He sends out armies of people who are deceived themselves, who are out to deceive other people. His great weapon is deception. And the only true weapon against that is the truth of God's word and the armor of God and the Spirit of God that enables us to have victory over those things. So the devil and his hordes are real. They want to deceive us. They want to destroy us. God has given us the weapons we need to defend ourselves against those things, but we have to put it on. We have to obey the Lord, and we have to do what He tells us to do so that we can have victory over these deceitful demons that want to destroy us. We'll look a little bit more next week at demons themselves.